You are now tuned into the truth frequency.
We are TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Can anybody hear me? There we go. We are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Kev Baker. You're tuned into tonight's Kev Baker Show right here on TFRlive.com. It's absolutely roasting over here in Glasgow again, so a bit sweaty here tonight. It's probably going to get even more hot under the collar as the show progresses, because it's going to be a good one. It's shaping up to be a cracker, in fact, because in hour number 2, can be joined by a real-life exorcist, my good friend, the spiritual warrior, and that is, of course, Bill Bean. And he's going to be coming back to tell us all about his latest adventures and his kind of fight against the darkness, against the evil. He's going to be getting into some of the news that's going around right now as well. Really looking forward to Bill coming up in hour number 2. He's got a book out just now as well called The Connection. Check that out over at billbean.com. And in hour number 1 tonight, you'll be pleased to hear, I'm not going Han Solo tonight. No. Got one of the main men back with me. Scotty Lopez, fresh from his 4th of July celebrations. He's here with me tonight. We'll be back together again tomorrow night as well. And Scott, welcome to the show, my man. 3 shows this week. Flew so. Yes, I kept it warm for you, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. It's great to be back on KBS, man. And yeah, we had a very, very fun 4th of July. It was quite the spectacle. Our neighbors, I don't know what they were setting off next door, but it literally sounded like some kind of artillery or something. It was pretty crazy.
So you had a good time then, Scott, yeah?
Oh, it was excellent. Yeah, we were definitely getting our America on yesterday. So
that's what I like to hear. And you know, Johnny Whistles, he was asking for you today. He was also asking for all of you people out there in the chat room, all of you listening live on TFR or any of the other streams out there that carries the show. And he wanted me to let you know that he's thinking about you all. And fingers crossed, Johnny will be back with us tomorrow night. And myself and John, we were kind of shaking our head today because this story that I covered last night, it's not going away. In fact, it's growing arms, legs, and it's running about, and it just keeps getting bigger, escalating all the time. What am I talking about? Yet another Novichok poisoning over here in the UK. Now, if you tuned into the show last night, you'd have heard me talking about this as it was starting to unfold. And today we've got a lot more information, a lot more has become clear. And one of the angles that I kind of threw out there last night appears to be kind of fitting with what we're being told in the media. We'll get into that in a moment. But I find the timing of all of this, 2 more people now poisoned over here in the UK. We've got the inevitable media circus that's unfolding. We've got those very dramatic Cobra meetings taking place at the government. And all of this, the timing of it, very, very, very interesting. Number 1, we have got the World Cup in Russia going on right now. And myself and Scott, along with Alex from Ukraine, we were talking just before on the eve of the World Cup, how we expected something to go down, some kind of story to come along and really, take the shine off what was happening in Russia. Now, admittedly, at the time, I thought it would be something in Russia. Alex predicted Ukraine. But here we are now, served up a perfect distraction from what so far has been a very positive World Cup, which has left a very positive outlook on Russia itself. Number 2, aside from the World Cup, we have got Donald Trump visiting next week. Now, this could be another reason why we have got a Russian wild card being played right now. Because for all the abuse that Donald Trump takes on his side of the pond, and all of these outrageous connections that they make to Russian collusion between Trump and Putin during the elections, mark my words, it's at fever pitch over here as well. Despite the fact that none of that is factual, And today I was learning that there's going to be a big, massive blimp of a a baby Trump flying over the Houses of Parliament. Now, I find that kind of distasteful. You know, you might not agree with the man or his politics, but that there's just, that's kind of crass. I think that kind of takes a bit of the great out of this Great Britain that we always kind of say that we are. And we're meant to be champions of democracy, right? Well, as far as I can make out, he did win democratically. So that's something else, you know, that this Russian story will be taking heat off of and maybe adding to some interesting conversations when Trump's over here. And number 3, Theresa Mayhem. She is in big trouble right now. She doesn't have her problems to seek. You can look at the whole Brexit shambles that's going on. You can look at some of the infighting that's going on in her own party. You know, British politics is an absolute shambles. That's why I really rarely talk about it. That and the fact I don't know enough about it. But I do know that Tory party that's in the seat of power right now, it's definitely not beyond them to go and launch some kind of false flag as a distraction, as a vehicle to a number of ends. And the latest that we're being told today is, and I'll get Scott to chime in on this as well once I give the headline and a couple of the details out here, Scotty. You know, nothing like really hyping this up and appealing to our emotions. Because last night I was saying how there was a drug angle to this story. And when these people were first found in the flat in Amesbury, it was suspected it could be a drugs overdose. Now, this has now grown and spun, and the people in the media, they're running with this kind of angle. And we've got a headline here, and talk about trying to pull on the heartstrings. Talk about really going for your emotions. Police fear that Novichok syringe that left a couple fighting for their lives could have been carried off by a child, as they admit they have no idea where it is, as authorities evacuate homes. Now, Scott, what's happened here is, right, remember the Skripals? They got poisoned in Salisbury, and we covered that at the time, and It was maybe 7 miles from Portondown, your Fort Detrick or Plum Island. Well, over the weekend, we had a couple in Amesbury, and that's close to Stonehenge, and maybe 3 miles or so from Portondown, 8 miles from Salisbury. They're found unconscious in their house after a party. And then it took them a couple of days to realise that this may actually be a case of Novichok poisoning. It was confirmed late last night that this was Novichok, that these people had ingested somehow. And now we're being told that there's a possibility that the pair of people involved here, Charlie Rowley, 45, and Don Sturgis, 44, who were known drug users, they may have found this substance and they may have thought it was some drugs. Now, whether it was in a syringe or in a vial at the time, obviously we don't know that. But they're trying to tell us that they shot this up. They used this Novichok as if it was some kind of heroin. And now, to make that even worse, there's some unnamed child on the loose with a syringe that may be absolutely loaded with more of this stuff. It's getting more and more ridiculous by the hour, Scotty. But what's your thoughts on this, man?
Wow. I mean, where do I even begin? First of all, I mean, like I told you before the show, this Novichok must be the world's most horrible, the world's most ineffective, I guess I could say, nerve agent, because nobody has died from this yet. You would think if you were exposed to a nerve agent, or people were exposed to a nerve agent, they would be dead. And they're trying to say that these people shot it up with a needle, like injected it straight into their veins, and it still didn't kill them. Who's making this stuff? You know, I mean, if it's the Russians, right, that they're claiming, well, then they're not doing a very good job of making nerve agent. You know, it's ridiculous. This whole thing is ridiculous. I mean, the headlines coming out of there are so sensational, so over the top. It's like clown level ridiculous. And I don't know what's more ridiculous, the headlines that are coming out, or the fact that people in the UK actually buy into what's being fed to them.
Well said.
I don't know, man. This whole thing is just out of control.
No, that's what we were talking about before the show, folks. Myself and Scott were saying it's one thing the government trying to play this same card again 4 months to the day later after the original case with the Skripals. That in itself, it's actually quite cheeky to think that we would fall for that again. But what's even more ridiculous on the back of that is the fact that a lot of people, and I'm not talking about you listening tonight, you question things, you think for yourself. You definitely aren't the kind of people to hear something on the news or read it in the paper, read it online and just believe it right away. But so many people are still like that. And there's an older generation over here that, anything that the BBC News says, it must be factual. And that is a generation.
Yeah, we have that too.
Yeah, it must be.
We have the older generation that they just sit, like the older crowd that, I would say, 60 plus or whatever, maybe 50 plus that just sit and watch Fox News and they buy everything that Fox News tells them. They don't question anything that's told to them. And, a lot of people at that age, it's hard to even change their mind because they're set in their ways and they're hard-headed. And, it's just kind of the nature of how old people are generally. Not all, but, generally. So, yeah. Definitely. There's a lot of people that buy into the propaganda.
Oh, absolutely. And I have to laugh as well, Scott, because they call this a lethal nerve agent. And it must be like one of Kenneth Webb's unknown knowns or known unknowns or unknown unknowns. It's like a non-lethal, lethal chemical weapon, isn't it? And even Vladimir Putin, when the first attack happened, he said, this is really strange. A, the fact that it didn't kill anyone, and B, why Salisbury Hospital just happened to have the correct antidotes on hand for the first responders. Just saying. Now, one of the pieces of information that came out today that adds to the kind of the narrative or the speculation I was putting out there last night about how this unfolded, this came today on Sky News, and they were speaking to a friend of Mr. Rowley who said he's a good guy and has a heart of gold. He was always there if I needed him. He's a good person to have as a friend. Now, the friend said that Mr. Rowley had been caught up in the contamination, quote, by accident. Quote, I think they found a package that possibly looked like drugs and took them, said the friend, who saw Mr. Rowley outside a McDonald's last week. Now, the friend, disputing what others have said about Ms. Sturgis, did not use drugs and alleged that, quote, we're all pretty serious drug addicts around here, and if they were withdrawing and it looked like heroin, they would have injected it straight away without a second thought. Now, Mr. Rowley is, quote, trapped in the game, a reference to drug taking, the friend said. And the friend told Sky News that Mr. Rowley was part of the group that would, quote, look in bins to try and sell things. Now, Mr. Rowley has not had a job during the time. The friend has known him around 3 years, the friend has said. Now, I only add that to the mix because this adds to this whole kind of angle, Scotty, the drug angle. And I get that, people who are addicted to heroin and stuff like that, they get desperate. But I don't honestly think they would find something in the street, be it a vial, be it a small package, and just shoot it up without any way of testing or knowing what it is. I don't think people are quite that stupid. And also, Scott, how come it took 4 months? So this syringe or this vial of Novichok was lying for 4 months before somebody found it. None of this makes sense, man. I really am thinking maybe we've got a couple that do like to dabble in drugs. They maybe had a bit too much at the party, went home, something terrible's happened, they have overdosed, paramedics have turned up, first responders, and somebody from the Department of False Flaggery has gone, aha, Theresa Mayhem is looking for something to happen this weekend. Here we go. And from there, they can spin it any way they like. Now, people will say, but Kev, these people will soon come out of hospital and tell us exactly what happened. Well, Mr. Rowley hasn't had a job for 3 years, and Miss Sturgis is living in a homeless hostel. Now, it's pure speculation on my part, Scott, but it would be kind of easy to pay them off and to go along with whatever story they're told to go along with, right?
Yeah, definitely. I was just about to say, I mean, you're dealing with vulnerable people here, right? Now that are either compromised financially, right? I mean, you can offer them money, and they'll probably go with the story, or even worse, maybe not even offer them money, but we're talking about people that are like dependent on the system, right? They're a vulnerable group of people, so the authorities can actually threaten them with a lot of things, and hold a lot of stuff over their head and be like, hey, uh, go with the story, or we're going to bust you for something, right? And throw you in the slammer for a while. There's all kinds of ways that you could coerce people that are in that position. So right there, I would say, any story that they come out with, you have to take with a grain of salt, because these people can be easily compromised. And, then there's just the stigma of being a drug addict to begin with, right? People are going to be like, oh, well, are you just going to take the word of a junkie? Or they were saying, there's already that biased against them. So they can pretty much play whatever angle they want to play and use these people. And no one's really gonna, unfortunately, no one's really gonna question it, I guess you could say, or challenge the authorities and the official narrative on all of this.
No, absolutely, Scotty. And I mean, they've targeted very vulnerable people here. And that's something I hadn't really thought about. And there's a couple of more headlines I want to get to here before we go to the break. And this one here, it says Russia claims that Britain staged the Amesbury Novichok crisis to ruin the World Cup. As a politician says, the poisoning was designed to stoke anti-Russian hysteria. That sounds like he's been listening to the Kev Baker Show.
Well, that's probably a lot closer to the truth, and probably dead on, right on target of what really happened. And I'm not just saying that to be some Russian shill. It's just the ridiculousness of this all, right? I mean, why would they do something like that during the World Cup or whatever? And why was there supposedly a syringe full of this nerve agent just laying around? What'd you say, for 4 months? Just laying around out in the...
Got poisoned
on the
4th of March. And although these two were taken to hospital over the weekend, when it was announced that it was a Novichok poisoning, it was the 4th of July. So that's a 4-month gap right there. Now, at the same time,
it's so ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's so ridiculous. I mean, none of this makes sense. I mean, there's so many holes in this story that they're pushing. There's so many weird, like, anomalies and questions that just kind of it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I'm still blown away by the fact of the supposed, well, junkies just found it laying on the ground, so decided, oh, I'm going to shoot it up. Yeah, they might be junkies, but I think they probably would have had a little more common sense than to just pick something strange up off the ground and inject it without even knowing what they were injecting. Like you said, no tests, not to make sure that what they had was heroin. I'm sure Novichok and heroin look a lot different.
Actual scribbles.
I don't know.
They said that the Novichok had been administered to the door handle in a gel form. So now we're told that this gel form that was on the doorknob, we're to assume it was the Russian spies, right? Surely there couldn't have been two random people turned up in that part of the world separately, independently, with Novichok on them. So it turned from a gel 4 months ago into somehow now being in a syringe. Okay, so it could have been in a syringe. They could have applied it that way. But does that look like a syringe full of smack? I don't know. I've never really seen Novichok in syringe form, but I really don't think these people would be shooting it up. I really don't. Now, we also have to throw out...
I don't think so either.
Yeah, we also have to throw out there, Vladimir Putin, ex-KGB, he's a spook to the max. Maybe he's seen an opportunity here. He sat down with his Kremlin buddies and he said, you know what, guys? Is there anyone we want to do in right now? And his pals would have said, what are you talking about, Vlad? The whole world are watching us. Why would we want to do anything right now? Well, you see, if we do bad things right now, everyone's going to blame us anyway. And everyone's so used to us having to deny everything, then what a perfect opportunity to get a couple of jobs done. They are spooks, Scott. We have to throw it out there. I know I'm a big lover of Russia, but we have to brainstorm it from all angles, right? It's ridiculous, I know. It just makes no logical sense. However, we have to put it on the table to dismiss it first, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is a possibility. That is an angle that it could be, right? I mean, if Russia's going to be blamed for everything anyways, they might as well just go ahead and. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think old Vladdy boy is has decided he's going to start knocking people off.
Before we go to the break, riddle me this one, right? Riddle me this. You've got this toxic substance that's got people in hospital. You've got the army and the police going about in the big kind of scary suits. You've got the street where these two people were found unconscious, and they've sealed all of that off because it's highly contaminated or possibly contaminated. Yet people living just outside that cordon zone and people who were with these couple at the garden party on the day they took ill, they've been told just to wash their clothes and wipe down their mobile phones. There's nothing to worry about here. Well, there's something wrong there. There's a mixed message going on here. We're having to buy the Skripal's house to knock it down. We're having to buy the cop that found the Skripal's house to knock it down because they're so glowing with this toxic Novichok that doesn't kill anyone. And now we've got this street sealed off. Yet anyone else in the area that might have come into contact with something suspicious, it's okay. Just go and wash your clothes, wipe your mobile phone down. You'll be fine. That just doesn't make sense either.
No, it don't. And that reminds me a lot of when the anthrax attacks happened after 9/11 here in the U.S. And they were telling people, oh, just use some duct tape and some plastic around your windows. It's like, okay. Completely like ridiculous. Completely ridiculous safety measures and precautions to take duct tape fixes a lot of things, but I don't think it's gonna stop some kind of anthrax attack. But hey, the government, it's what the government said to do, so I guess we can just trust them. They know best.
You always see serial killers with duct tape in the boot of their car, Scott, so it's no surprise that the government would recommend duct tape either. Just to kind of recap on the key points here for people, we're talking about this Novichok nonsense that's going on down in Amesbury. Don Sturgis, 44, Charlie Rowley, 45, fighting for their lives after being exposed to the lethal, non-lethal Novichok nerve agent. They're understood to be drug users and in critical condition. Family of Dawn says she's on the brink of death and fears she is going to die. Experts fear that they may have handled or used a syringe or needle that assassins used to carry the poison. One friend said, it was definitely an accident. I think they found a package and it looked like drugs. Former neighbour claims Dawn would pick up discarded cigarette butts and could have smoked the poison. Counter-terrorism police have sent samples to Porton Down where they confirmed Novichok. This all happened 7 miles from Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia when they were poisoned, and who are both back out and about, both breathing, not so lethal Novichok poisoning. And police have locked down several sites the new victims visited. And like I was saying, I was going over some of the ridiculous safety precautions that have been issued on the back of this. So why is this going on? Well, it's multifaceted. You can't have Russia looking so positive in the eyes of the world with everything going on around the World Cup right now. It's been a PR absolute nightmare for all the countries who have been demonizing Russia. We've got Trump coming over to visit soon, and we've got Theresa Mayhem. She does not have her problems to seek. You can take any one of them, all of the above, and probably an excuse to levy more sanctions against Putin and his cronies at the Kremlin. We'll be back on the other side. I'll get Scott's thoughts on some fracking earthquakes that have been happening in the UK. Don't go anywhere. Bill Bean's still to come. We'll be right back.
No hate, no hype, no fear. We are TFR. Frequency Radio.
There we go. We are back. We are live. I'm your host, Kev Baker. You're in the right place at the right time for today's Kev Baker Show, coming to you from a very, very warm Glasgow, Scotland. That's right, folks. We're still basking in the heat over here. Myself and Johnny Whistles, we were out watching nature this afternoon down in the local park at Easterhouse, watching a swan. Absolutely amazing. Just watching what was going on in the pond, Scott. You know, people, so much of our lives nowadays, whether we appreciate it or recognize it, we're stuck in front of screens or we're doing something, and we don't take enough time for ourselves, big man. And, you know, sometimes it's good just to unplug, get away from the gadgets, get out there, get into nature and just see all that beauty around us, because the darkness and the bad stuff, it's not exactly hard to find. Maybe sometimes people need a wee reminder. Get out there, get some fresh air, and while the sun's around, might as well take advantage of it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's what I pretty much did all day yesterday. You know, for the 4th of July, just spend time with the families, you know, hang out outside, you know, and I'd been kind of trying to unplug over the past couple of weeks, at least kind of tone down how much I'm on social media and stuff. And it does. You just have to unplug from the matrix sometimes and just take a deep breath, go outside, and just enjoy life, man, because it can. Whenever you look into a lot of these topics that we look into, whenever you look at the bad news all, you know, every day or whatever, it wears on you. And a lot of that, you know, that's almost like it's almost kind of like a masochistic sort of thing, right? I mean, why do we put ourselves through that? Really, I mean, it's very simple to just turn off the social media, just get off of it for a while, and just.
I think it's to do with. Remember, we covered Facebook, and we were talking about the dopamine feedback loops and things they put in there, and that's what they use to keep customers coming back. And you know, I think conspiracy is the same, Scott. You know, you're going down these rabbit holes. You're looking at one name that's leading you to something else. Before you know it, you've uncovered a connection to another company. And that in itself can be really exhilarating, really exciting.
Yeah, it can.
It gets the adrenaline.
I know, man.
Yeah, and that is,
because,
you know, that
because then you're like, oh, man. Yeah, you feel like you've unlocked like a part of the puzzle. And so it gives you that dopamine hit, right? Because you're like, haha, you know, you figure something out, you feel a sense of gratification from it. And it is, I mean, when you look into the stuff that we look into, you know, quote unquote conspiracy or whatever you want to call it, you know, searching for the truth or researching for stuff. It's a very, you know, I guess for our personality types, right? It's a very sort of addictive thing. You get really sucked into something, and when you start going down a rabbit hole, you don't want to stop. You go on this mission. You're on this mission to find what's at the end of the rabbit hole, and sometimes you never reach the end of the rabbit hole, right? So you're constantly looking, you're constantly researching.
It almost sounds like these breadcrumbs that you come across from time to time, you know, some faceless chatbot puts something out there on the internet, very vague. You go and research it and starts leading to information that's real. That fairly hooks you in. No, I'm not going to bash QAnon. We are moving on, folks. But that is an interesting thing to think about. And I'm glad I've got you here tonight, Scotty. Totally unbeknown to me that this would happen. And in fact, I'd missed the first 2 earthquakes that had happened in the past 8 days over here in Surrey, in England. And today they were struck by a 3rd earthquake. Now, I covered this today on a quick video. And like I say, Scott, I hadn't even seen the first 2 earthquakes occurring. 3rd one occurs. Turns out there was a 4th one, if you want to go back as far as April as well. Started looking into this area, Surrey, and historically, there is no kind of evidence of any active or any fault activity, seismic activity there in the past. Just north and south of where this is, there has been seismic activity back in the 1500s and 1700s. But this was kind of a new area for people, and it was kind of leaving geologists scratching their head. Now, at the time, I threw out a whole kind of list of things it could be, you know me, going for the woo, Planet X, all that stuff. But I also mentioned fracking. Now, at the time, I hadn't looked into the fracking angle of this down outside London. If people want to picture the geography, think between London and the south coast. And then in the hours that followed, Scott, I had an article come out on the Daily Mail with a headline that reads, "Is fracking to blame? Campaigners fear that alleged tests could have sparked the Gatwick Airport earthquake, the 7th to hit the UK in just 3 months." Now, today's was 3.0 magnitude. That's the biggest one they've had out of the 3. But your thoughts on this, my friend, because I love listening to you when you talk about this stuff. You're far more clued up than me. I can sound like I know what I'm talking about, but I know you look at this stuff, Scott. So, fracking, what do you think, man? Is that our suspect in this one?
Yeah, probably. And an interesting thing, I might even have the listeners do it, and maybe after the show we can do it, is take the coordinates, the GPS location of the epicenter of the earthquake, and then put it into Google Earth and zoom in and see if there's any fracking pads that are located near the epicenter. And I pretty much can guarantee that you're probably going to find fracking pads, right, within a mile of the epicenter of the earthquake. Now, I know you talked about this 4th one that happened earlier back in April, I believe. Was that with the 4.1, I think it was, something like that?
There was one in April the 1st, I believe it was, Scott.
Yeah, I believe it was that earthquake was the one that I did that with. I actually put the coordinates in, and lo and behold, there was 2 fracking pads right next to it, and I sent the image to Christopher Everard, and he shared it out, and I think that image that I had taken, it got thousands and thousands of views and shares and stuff on Facebook. He did a really good job of putting that out there, but yeah, you definitely have some fracking earthquake action happening in the UK. It's pretty interesting. Now, of course, we deal with it. We've been dealing with it a lot here in the Midwest, all the way from all the way from the Dakotas down into Texas. But Oklahoma seems to be the real epicenter of where a lot of these fracking earthquakes take place. I mean, you get them in Texas, you get them here in Kansas too, and even in southeast Colorado, but it really seems to be at its most concentrated in Oklahoma. And I've felt one earthquake here, and I heard another one. It's very weird hearing an earthquake but not feeling it. Very strange. It sounds like a distant rumbling thunder, but it's actually the sound of the ground shifting or something. It's probably a very low frequency rumble or something. It's really bizarre, but I would say, since you don't have any, active fault lines that they know of in that area, that makes it a lot more suspect, right? It really points to fracking. Now in Oklahoma, there are a lot of different smaller fault lines, and what's happening is that the fracking is actually activating these fault lines. So that's kind of an even more kind of a danger that we have to look at here. Is are they actually causing like a permanent sort of chain of events that's going to end up happening? I mean, what happens when you reactivate a fault line that hasn't been active? It's like, just really, really crazy stuff, man. And I was telling you before the show that I'm actually kind of, I know this kind of goes against what a lot of people sort of think or their opinion on the matter, but I'm actually glad that Trump is kind of unleashing the oil companies and letting them go out and explore and drill for more oil, because what that's going to do is that's going to stop a lot of this fracking that's happening. So people need to understand that fracking is done by the oil companies because they can't go out and explore for more oil. So they go and they basically re-hit these wells that have already been depleted of oil, and they inject that fracking fluid, the chemical water, or whatever you want to call it, whatever this fluid is that they use for fracking, they inject it back down into the wells so that they can crack the rock and get any remaining oil or natural gas out of these exhausted wells. So if you really kind of want to stop fracking, or you want to slow the pace of fracking, maybe the oil companies need to be going out, and allowed to actually explore for more oil and do more traditional drilling that is a lot safer for everyone than fracking is.
Absolutely. And, Scott, to add to this whole fracking picture, this angle on it, same article I was reading, it says campaigners have raised concerns that the earthquake was triggered by alleged fracking tests in the nearby area. Energy investment firm UK Gas and Oil announced just last Wednesday that all of the equipment needed to start flow testing was now ready at a fracking site in Horsehill, Horley, which is around 3 miles from where the earthquake was registered. Now, the company said
there you go,
that its work at the site does not involve subsurface drilling and so has little to no seismic impact. Now, I found another article from 6 days ago, before this latest earthquake, and it says UK earthquake threat. Expert warns that these Surrey quakes are, quote, not normal. 2 earthquakes have now hit Surrey just days apart, with British Geological Society seismologist Richard Lockett highlighting the extent of the oddity. Now, Mr. Lockett today said there was a constant stream of small earthquakes across many parts of the UK, except Surrey. He said there's no reason why Surrey should be any different, but what's unusual is it's not at all normal for Surrey. There hasn't been a quake for around 40 years. It's been particularly quiet. Now, Mr. Lockett said the quakes, which hit last Wednesday and Friday, were inexplicable and dismissed the weather and fracking as possible triggers. He said it's definitely nothing to do with the weather, and it's certainly plausible as fracking can cause earthquakes, but I checked with the Oil and Gas Authority and no subsurface fracking has been taking place. Residents responded with shock to the 2 earthquakes, which registered 2.4 and 2.4, both of them obviously 2.4. It goes on to say that classic car parts owner Roy McNeil and his wife from nearby Beer Green said they felt its effects of the most recent earthquake around 7 a.m. on Friday. So, Scott, here we have somebody from the British Geological Survey, that's like your USGS, and he's saying this is very strange. He's checked with the fracking company. Now, of course, we've only got his word and the fracking company's word to go on, but they say they haven't been doing anything. But it wasn't that long ago. We had a case up near Blackpool. That's like our Las Vegas of the North, as I like to call it, Scott. It's on the beach and things, and people go there to holiday. There was little earthquakes around there, a swarm of them, and it did turn out that fracking was the actual source of that. So I bet you this company down in Surrey are trying to do everything they can to cover their behinds right now for any lawsuits or any kind of fines that are going to be coming their way.
Yeah, and that's what they do here in the U.S. Whenever you have fracking quakes in Oklahoma, the USGS just kind of conveniently likes to downgrade them below a certain threshold because if it's found that a oil company has caused an earthquake, I don't know the exact magnitude, but it has to be above a certain threshold. I want to say like a 4.3 or above. Then the oil company is held liable for any damages, and there's a lot of there's a lot of action that's taken against the oil company. So I find it interesting because you'll initially see these fracking earthquakes register in Oklahoma, and then the initial magnitude, all of a sudden it drops just below that threshold. Just below the threshold.
Just below it. And
and you're like,
we were discussing before the show, and maybe people haven't even heard of this kind of theory before, but myself and Scott believe that oil and these natural gases and resources, they're not as finite as people would have us believe. Now, what I mean by that is that, oil and gas companies, by saying that there's only so much of a reserve there and one day it'll all run out, that in itself drives up the cost. And we know it's all about profit. But there's also a theory that exists called abiotic oil. Now, just to kind of give you a snapshot of what abiotic oil would be all about, imagine drilling somewhere out in the Gulf of Mexico. You totally drain it. You get to the end of all the oil in there. You move away, cap it, you're off. You forget about it. Only 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, you decide, come on, we'll go back and look at that well we capped. And you hear reports, and I've heard it from Russian oil workers, that sometimes they go back, Scott, and voila, abracadabra, look at that. The actual oil well is replenished. It's starting to come back. And this is all about abiotic oil. So your thoughts on this one? Is it just a conspiracy that they tell us it's just this, layer of dead dinosaurs and one day it'll all be gone? Booga booga.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Oil's constantly being produced by the earth. There's organic matter that is constantly being squished under pressure and producing oil. Now, it's not a finite resource that we're going to run out of. That's basically, like you said, they want people to think that that the oil's running out. I mean, that's very profitable if you've created a false sort of was it like a false scarcity, basically? So you're able to capitalize on that. But no, I think oil's being constantly replenished now. I mean, it's a question of, are we extracting it faster than the earth is, reproducing it? I mean, that could probably be up for debate, but I would think that the earth is probably producing it at a faster rate than we can take it out of the ground. It just depends on, where we're extracting it from, the locations and the places on the earth where it's actually being replenished, right? So I would say the oceans are a very good candidate for that, because you have a constant, you basically have a constant organic source that's always being replenished. I mean, stuff is dying all the time in the ocean and settling to the ocean floor. I mean, that's just happening daily. I mean, you got to wonder how many tons of organic matter is just like, dead organic matter is floating to the bottom of the ocean on a daily basis. I mean, it's crazy to think about. So, under that, under the ocean floor, I mean, you just have these layers and layers and layers of organic material, and you reach a certain point, it becomes oil. So Yeah, it's constantly being replenished. It's constantly the earth is constantly squeezing more oil out of all this dead organic matter. Yeah, it's not a finite resource. You're never, I think, going to just pump away all the oil and it's never going to come back again. That's just not how the earth works.
And if there is a hollow earth, perhaps it's the sewage system of the elves and the unicorns and all the little beasties that lies within the hollow earth. Hey, listen, you know me, Scott. I'm a bit okay. I'm well out there, but I can't even remember where I was going now, Scott. After I went down that rabbit hole.
I mean, if I'm powering my van with unicorn poop, then let's go for it. We can do it.
Exactly, dude. And people will say this is new agey, and I hate that because I hate any label for any kind of phrase that comes out of somebody. And I do think that this planet, Scott, people call it Gaia, some call it Sophia, whatever. I think there is a life force to it. I don't mean you can give it a phone call and it'll sit there and have a conversation with you, and it doesn't speak to Mars, things like that. But for oil, I mean, I kind of look at that and I relate that to almost like the blood. It's like the blood of the planet. And I know that we're almost like some kind of vampire, always taking off this planet, always kind of tapping into that. But, when it comes to oil as well, we can never forget that this is one of the unholy trinity of the elites, because oil is a big part of their god. And not the kind of God that people might be thinking of, the one you'll find in the Bible, but the God of gold, oil, and drugs. That's their unholy trinity, Scotty. This is where the big bucks come in, right?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And, I know a lot of people are probably already sitting here thinking, oh, Scott's just shilling for the oil companies. He wants them to go out and drill more and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. No. yeah. I'll be getting messages, I'm sure, whatever. But you're right, though. I mean, look at, Rockefeller's Standard Oil. I mean, there's money to be made in it. And it does have to do with this false scarcity that they're pushing, to make people think that it's running out so they're able to charge more. And, you're going to have corrupt corporations and you're going to have corrupt power players congregating to this resource and utilizing it and leveraging it for their own gain. So, yeah, I mean, they do scumbag things, and it is a tool that's used by the elite, but that doesn't make the oil bad. We need the oil. I mean, I'm of the opinion that we need to utilize all resources while it's available, if it's available. As long as oil is in the ground and we're able to drill it and we're able to utilize it and use it, we should be able to do that. But I mean, solar energy, do that too.
If it helps,
any sort of.
I will stand on the oil platform with you because I agree with you, and it goes back to the planet almost being alive, Scott. I think everything here, it's all resources. There's a balance to be had with everything, and like Scott says, if something's here that can be used and we can get an advantage out of that, then I think we should be using that. Now, should we be looking for the cleanest and safest way to be doing it? Absolutely, obviously. That's a no-brainer, Scotty, isn't it?
There's safe ways of drilling oil, and I know a lot of people will be like, "There's no safe way of doing it." There's no, anything. The people that are against oil are just going to be against it, right? And it is kind of hypocritical, like I was telling you before the show, that if you're against oil and you're against the oil companies, then throw away everything in your house. Actually get rid of anything that is made of plastic, because petrochemicals were used to make that. Throw away your phone. Go ahead and siphon out your gas tank. Don't drive your vehicle. Don't use anything that is made with a petrochemical, because you're being a hypocrite if you're talking about being against oil, being against all these pipelines and all of this stuff, when pretty much everything in your house utilizes petrochemicals and oil to produce. So, don't be whining about it on Facebook. Go ahead and go and live out in the forest and do not use oil at all if you're going to take that kind of stand. You've got to think about a lot of these things before you start opening your mouth about stuff like that.
And that's why when I become the next king of Scotland, we're going to be like the Abu Dhabi of the Western Union. We really are. I'm going to seize back our oil fields from Brussels. What they have control of our oil for, no idea. None of the tax will be going down to the reptilian layer. No, you down in Buckingham, you can freeze for all I care. The Abu Dhabi,
and like I said,
Western Europe.
Like I said, these companies, they need to do it responsibly. I'm not saying they should just go in there and just like rape the forest and cut everything down and just like start dumping chemicals everywhere and all that. No, they have a responsibility to do it safely. But we need the resources, we need the energy, and it's there. It's not gone, and we need to be able to utilize it.
We're almost out of time, Scotty boy, and I just want to remind the listeners before we move into hour number 2, we've got the exorcist coming up, the deliverance minister himself, the spiritual warrior, Bill Bean, will be catching up on all his latest adventures. And here's a guy, Scott, you hear about people saying, well, we play about with Ouija boards and dabble with the dark side. This guy lives that 24/7. That's why I get excited when he comes on. It's almost like a guilty pleasure finding out what Bill's been up to. And it's horrible, really, because it's nice to hear about the stories. We all like to hear these stories, but we should never forget that for all of these stories that Bill can share with us, there's some poor victim that's a part of this as well, a victim of demonic forces. We'll be back after the break with the aforementioned exorcist. Don't go anywhere, folks. Things are going to get even more interesting after the break as we start talking paranormal activity with Bill Bean. Don't go anywhere.
Truth Frequency Radio is your number. This is Truth Frequency Radio.
The wicked ones obviously under heavy Masonic influence.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hour number 2 on tonight's broadcast of the Kev Baker Show, right here on Truth Frequency Radio, www.tfrlive.com. I want to thank you all for tuning in. And as we move into hour number 2 now, we're going to shift gears because we have got a man coming onto the show who I've got so much time and respect and love for, and I love to bring him on every month. For any new listeners out there, we're going to be speaking to a real-life exorcist, a deliverance minister, and a man that they call the spiritual warrior. And his name, like I say, is Bill Bean. Now, for anyone who hasn't heard of Bill before, he's an internationally known author, lecturer, and paranormal supernatural expert. Like I say, he's a deliverance minister. Bill's helped me and my family personally, and so many other hundreds of people around the world. Now, you can also see some of Bill's early life on the TLC's show called A Haunting, where it basically goes over his younger years and the very, very strange house that he had his upbringing in, which set Bill on this path to where he is today. And he's here with us tonight. You can find his work at billbean.net, billbean.com as well. I think he's got a book out just now, The Connection. He's got another number of books you can find on there as well. And Bill, how you doing, man? It's great to have you back.
I'm doing great, my brother. It's always great to be back with you. Thank you so much for always having me back.
No, it's like I was saying, I had Scott on in hour number 1, and I was saying that it's a real pleasure for me. And in fact, it's an honor, Bill, because you do shows on the kind of size of coast to coast, and yet you never, ever hesitate to make time and kind of clear the boards to come on here, join me, join the KBS audience. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you on every month, sir. And what really gets me as well, Bill, we're separated by the Atlantic Ocean, yet somehow, without ever speaking between shows, we're usually looking at similar material, right?
Yeah, you're a true brother, and we praise God for that. It's a blessed connection, and it's a divine appointed connection, and we praise God for that. Absolutely, we're on the same page, on the same wavelength, and we seem to research or have the same type of information that comes our way without even the other discussing it. So that is a true connection from God, and we praise Him for it.
Absolutely. I second that, Bill. I truly do. And I'll always thank Laura Maxwell for putting us in touch with each other that very first time. And before we get into some of the craziness that's unfolding in America right now, Bill, I know you've been keeping an eye on that. You work, like I was saying in the introduction, as an exorcist, for lack of a better term. Most people will know what I mean when I say that. You're a deliverance minister, and you offer people help at this time when what we call on here dark forces are absolutely rising so frequently. People are being harassed by these demonic entities, these demonic forces. And what's been happening lately since we last spoke, Bill? I know we sometimes catch up on your latest cases, so has anything untoward been going on? What have you been noticing?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're absolutely right, everything you just said there, and just as the temperatures seem to be rising, all over the world, the amount of these cases where people are coming under, this demonic influence or oppression or sometimes full possession, it's on the rise, and it's been on the rise for quite a while, and there are various reasons why I believe that it is on the rise. And my most recent cases, California and Florida. I'm headed back to Florida again here next week for a family down there that is having these types of problems. And, it just seems to be everywhere, Kev, and it's not just one or a certain type of person. It's affecting people from all walks of life, whether they be the most of the wealthy or the poorest of the poor or in between. It really has no bearing or meaning as to what one's status is. But people are truly being affected. And I think we touched before recently about the people in California. I believe it was somewhere out near the, I want to say San Diego area, that, nearly 300 people were hearing these voices in their heads. And I mean, again, these were average, everyday people, productive, hardworking people. And they were hearing these voices, and no one can figure out why. So again, we've talked about this before, that all life operates on frequency and vibration. So the devil knows this, and the devil, through this fallen angel technology, has his way of manipulating those frequencies and vibrations, and then perhaps having a way to implant these messages through a frequency and vibration to where, normal, everyday, average people are suddenly hearing these types of voices in their heads. That's the only way that I can reconcile it, because, I mean, again, these are people that are not mentally ill. These are your just average, ordinary people that suddenly are saying that they're experiencing this.
No, there's definitely, it's increasing all the time. And I try to keep my eye on the amount of stories that feature demonic possessions, exorcisms, stuff like that. And we do talk about frequency a lot, Bill. And we're seeing a lot of earth changes around the planet right now. We're seeing all the volcanoes popping off. We've got earthquakes popping off. We've got this heat. It's all the way across America. We've got it over here in Europe as well. And I would imagine frequency could have a part to play in that. And you know the Bible far better than I ever could, sir. So tell me now, wasn't the devil, Satan, Lucifer, was he not like the head of God's choir at one point? And I only ask
You're absolutely correct.
That would mean then he would be very, very proficient in manipulating frequencies, right?
You're so right on the mark there, brother. That's absolutely right. And I study about these things all the time. Again, I've lived it. My family was destroyed by demonic forces. I was nearly destroyed as well. And you were right in what you said in the opening, that This is why I do what I do. This is why God has called me to do this. With His power working through me on the behalf of others and helping others. This is why. This is what it's all about. So when I say these things, I say them from experience, and I also say it from lots of study. I mean, even though I'm super busy, and I am, my schedule is crazy, I still find time to read at least one book a week, sometimes 2 books a week. And because we must always thirst for knowledge, and knowledge is power, and power perceived is power achieved. So we must, if you really want to know the truth of what is going on in our world, always take it to God first, ask Him, and then do your part by allowing God to guide you to areas or books or writings or whatever it may be that can help to give you a better understanding and broaden your knowledge in the areas that you're seeking this information.
You see, this is perfect having you on tonight, because unbeknown to you, before the break, we were talking about the god of the elites, of the cabal, of these Satanists that are running the planet, Bill. And by God, their god literally is gold, oil, and drugs. That's their unholy trinity. And right now, of course, these people that have been in power for so long, they're manipulating the masses. They really are. And that kind of takes us into something else you want to touch on tonight, because over in America right now, with the temperature rising, so is the kind of political playing field as well. I've been speaking with Scott Lopez about the potential for even some kind of civil war upcoming over there. And when you look at some of the craziness that's out unfolding, Bill, and I'm not talking about your average Democratic supporter who isn't losing their mind over Donald Trump, but some of these people who are basically losing it over everything that's going on right now, could that be influenced by these same dark forces? And I say that because we know these elites that are manipulating them. They go to Bohemian Grove, they take part in all of these horrible acts with children, people trafficking. Do you think that's influencing what we're seeing playing out on the streets, Bill?
It absolutely is. And, Kev, I'm very concerned. I truly am. Now, God's in control of everything, and I'm not concerned for myself, but I am concerned for our country in America and the great divide that has taken place. And, in the previous administration, there was a great divide as well, but it was different in a way that to where the moral majority and populace were opposed to Barack Obama in the previous administration, but there wasn't any type of uprising, nothing like what's taking place now. So, I mean, you have, it's so unfortunate. And look, I love all people. I have nothing against anybody, and I would do anything to help anyone. But what's taking place now with some of these radical, liberal leftists, it is just uncalled for. And it's got to stop, because I'm very concerned, Kev, that this is going to lead to some type of civil war, civil disturbance. We already have a civil disturbance, but it's heading in the direction of a civil war. I don't want to see it, and I really shudder to think what would take place. But the president keeps dropping hints. Be careful. Be careful what you're saying. Be careful what you're doing. He is dropping the hints through social media. So these people that are doing these things, they better be careful. He's giving you the warnings. And this could really turn into something bad. I don't want to see it, that's for sure. I pray for peace. But I watched a story and a video from just last night in San Antonio, Texas, where these 2 16-year-old boys were at a fast food place. And one of the boys had a Trump Make America Great Again hat on. And this individual just walks up to them and tears the hat off of the boy's head and throws a drink right in his face, and then, hurls explicatives at him and walks away with the hat. I mean, this is what it's coming to. And this is certainly cause for great concern. Also, yesterday afternoon, there was a woman in New York that partially scaled. I guess she got to the first the bottom part of the Statue of Liberty, and of course couldn't get back down, so she somehow climbed up to the bottom part of the statue and then had to be rescued. And so now you have police and rescue that come in and take those resources for someone that did this themselves, and she's trying to make a statement that she wants ICE abolished and all these things. And this is biblical, Kev, because this really leads back to many scriptures in the Bible, the book of Daniel that talks about the lawless one and things of that nature. So in life, there's an order to all things, and that begins with God, Yahweh, who created everything. It starts there, and then it trickles down to Jesus, the Holy Spirit, to man. And when it gets down to man and mankind, we have a responsibility and an obligation to follow along in the rules and guidelines. Now, are we perfect? No. Will we ever be perfect? No. But we must strive to do the best that we can do each and every day and be the best that we can be each and every day. And that really includes taking responsibility, standing up for what is good and right and doing the right thing. And if everybody adopted that type of mindset, we wouldn't be having this problem right now that we're having. It's unfortunate. So there are people, and I really don't think it's that many of them. I think this media builds these people up to where it seems like there's just an army of these types of people who have rebelled against law and order, and they're going to do whatever they want to do, and nobody's going to stop them, and things of that nature. And a lot of these people, they don't pay bills. They live, with their parents, and they don't have any obligations or responsibilities. They don't know what it's like to have to support themselves and or a family. They don't know any of these things, but yet they think they have all the answers and they've got it all figured out. They're going to do whatever they want to do, and they just hate the rule of law. And this is wrong. It is wrong, and it's unfortunate that that type of mindset has been introduced into the populace. But it's all the devil's in the details, Kev. This is all set to divide and conquer. The devil's loving every minute of it when he sees this type of division, when he sees people being cruel to each other, and even worse, there are people that are getting hurt now, and some are getting killed as well. So, this is very, very serious, and the devil's laughing all the way. He's enjoying every bit of it. So I would ask people who have that type of mentality and mindset to just take a step back and just think about what you're doing. Think about why you're so angry and why you're protesting in this way. And think to yourself, wouldn't it be better if everybody could just kind of work together and get along? You don't have to love the president. If you don't, look, I was not a fan of Barack Obama, but I never wished the man dead. I never went on shows and, wished ill will to him or his family or anything like that. But this has, gotten to a point now to where, we're really getting into a dangerous area to where people have so much animosity. Some people, and again, I think it's a minority. I think this media, the fake news, builds these types of individuals up to make them look so gigantic and such an army. But I think it's a small percentage. I think that the moral majority is far greater and outnumbers them, just by an amazing number. And so I just pray that people who have this type of mindset will just stop, take pause, take a step back, and even if you had to write it out on a pad or type it out on in a document file or something, and say, okay, these are the reasons why I'm so angry. These are the reasons why I'm in such great opposition, and these are the reasons here. Then you put on the other side reasons and thoughts as to how you could be productive and make things better and sort of kind of work together in bringing peace and harmony back to our nation. People can say what they want, Kev, but the numbers don't lie. It's since President Trump has been in office, economy has just took a complete turn for the better. Unemployment for blacks, it is the unemployment for blacks is at an all-time low. So more black people are working now. Same thing for Latino people. This, you can say what you want about this guy. Is he perfect? No way. Who is? We all make mistakes in some way, shape, or form. But all you have to do is really look at the numbers and see that this man has brought. I have a whole file on the changes that he's made for the better, and we could take this whole hour up just listing those things. But I see it. The numbers don't lie. So it's very unfortunate. It's very sad that people are almost under a spell to where they have this type of hatred towards the man, and he could run into a burning building and save a family and carry him out, and then those very same type of people would say that he set the fire.
No, you're absolutely correct. And, I try and stay as apolitical as I can, but you're correct. When you look at what he's done since he took office, yeah, he's not perfect, but he certainly has improved the economy, bringing jobs back. And this is all part of his mantra, this making America great again. And from everything I've heard about and learned about the New World Order, the cabal, the elites, one thing that they had to do was bring America down, because you can't have any major superpowers or any big guys on the block if you're going to have a global government. And that's why I really fear for Donald Trump right now, because if he is the genuine article, that he does seem to be, again, I'm not taking sides, then he must have a giant crosshairs on his back. And, it's kind of ironic.
Yeah.
Here are Democratic supporters, and they've got absolutely no time for the democratic kind of process, the rule of law. And it seems to me, Bill, as the years go on and technology improves and our interconnectedness has improved vastly, we can contact anyone around the world. Here we are speaking to thousands of people on air on other sides of the pond. But as all of that's increased and improved, it's almost as if there's been an erosion in decency and respect. And this is what leads to the scenes that we see now. And you've got these wizards and magicians and warlocks, as I call them. You've got them in Hollywood and you've got them in the media.
Yeah.
And you're so right, because I do think this is a really small minority. But if they can convince enough people who are low informed that there are vast numbers out there, that in itself, Bill, I honestly think they're trying to trigger people into carrying out actions that will spark something bigger.
Boy, are you ever right, Kev. And I think we just saw a case of that here in Maryland recently with the shooting that took place in Annapolis, Maryland, which is about 5 minutes away from where I live. And I do believe that this man was triggered. Now, do I believe he had mental illness and was unstable? Absolutely. I mean, based on what I read and his gripe that he had with the Maryland Gazette newspaper and some of those people, he certainly had issues and a vendetta against them and was mentally unstable. However, I truly believe that somehow, some way, again, through frequency and vibration, however that took place, whoever did what, I think that this man was triggered and pushed over the edge by someone at some type of technology that pushed him over the edge to carry out these murders. And I certainly believe there's a lot more to the story that's been reported there. And it's sad and it's unfortunate. And God bless all the people that were affected and their families from another just absolute wicked and heinous act for this individual to go in and do what he did. But, it's amazing, Kev, because the first reports were that this individual, I think his name is Jared Ramos, that the initial reports were that there were two gunmen, and one was shot and killed by police, and the other was wounded in the leg. That was the first report that I heard. Then, all of a sudden, the narrative changed. Now, this sounds familiar, Las Vegas and all these other types of events like this that take place. Then, all of a sudden, the narrative changes to one shooter, and he was never hurt, and he, went in and shot all these people. 5 people he killed. I think he shot 7, if I'm not mistaken, killed 5. And the police responded within 60 seconds. Now, think about this, Kev.
That's the part of the story that really kind of made my eyebrows raise a little, Bill. 60 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, so this guy, within 60 seconds, goes in and he just starts shooting people up. And then one man said he heard him pause and was reloading and all that. And he did all this in 60 seconds. And then the police show up, and there's no firefight. According to this new narrative, there's no firefight at all. And this guy's hiding under a desk, and they just peacefully take him into custody after all this carnage. The story stinks. I'm sorry. It stinks to high heaven. There's a lot more to this. And I don't know exactly what took place there, but I'll guarantee you it's not how they're saying.
No, absolutely. The one thing we can take when any of these events go down, Bill, we can totally disregard what the official police statement says, and we can totally disregard what the mainstream lying media always tell us. The facts, they never let the facts get in the way of a good narrative that pushes one agenda over another. And it's quite hard for me, to wrap my head around the fact that we're living at a time now when you get what used to be one of my favourite actors. Guy's an absolute clown now, in my opinion, but Robert De Niro up there, absolutely openly abusing the president. You've got Maxine Waters, who looks like an abomination on a good day, and she's basically calling for violence. Now, if either of these people had done that when Obama was in office, they would rightly have been scooped up by the Secret Service. You just can't do this.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I mean, there are people out there, again, like you touched on before, that are not informed, and they are, how can I say this? They're uninformed, but yet they are very easily manipulated to where if they hear something, they will go with that narrative, and they will, fully get behind something that, even though they don't have any understanding of it whatsoever, they will just take it because the populace, in their mind, everybody's saying that's the way to go. So they are a born follower, and they will go along with whatever that narrative is. And this goes right back to MK Ultra. It goes right back to all the mind control techniques in the 5 states of, putting a person under mind control, all these things. I mean, it goes right back to that CIA playbook of, how they can manipulate the human mind. And so it's sad, it's unfortunate, and this is why I urge people, and for all of you listening out there today, don't take my word for anything that I've said here. I urge you to research it for yourself. Always pray first. Ask God for the truth. Ask God to lead you in the direction of truth, and then see it for yourself, and be prepared to have your eyes wide open.
We'll be back on the other side with the brilliant Bill Bean. Check out his work over at billbean.com. We'll be right back after these short messages. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the Truth Frequency Radio Network.
No hate, no hype, no fear.
There we go. We're back already, and I've got Bill Bean, the spiritual warrior, here with me tonight. You can find his work over at billbean.com. Now, Bill, like I was saying in your introduction, you go on coast to coast and massive shows like that. It always makes me smile when I see you going on to coast, because that kind of shows the level of information that you bring to the table, sir. But what other upcoming kind of appearances have you got in the pipeline that you can let people know about, Bill?
Well, I thank you, my brother, and it's always great. I mean, I look to me and for me. I mean, this is like always, and I'm so grateful that I have the opportunity to come on with you once a month. I'm really, and I thank you for that, for providing that opportunity. And it's very comfortable for me, and it's also great. And you're no little show, man. Coast to coast is the giant in the industry, but your show is very large as well and reaches out to a large audience. So you're no small potatoes, and it's always great to be on with you. And I think more and more people are discovering you and your show. And so praise God. And I certainly pray that today people will listen or will have listened to what I've said and take some of those things to heart and go and start to do some research, and may their eyes be open. But yeah, I have an appearance coming up in Brewster, New York. Next week's going to be a very busy week because I have to go to Florida first and help a family down there. And then when I get back, I'll be back for one day, and I'm going to have to go to New York next Saturday. I believe it's the 14th. The 11th, I'll be in Florida. The 14th, I'm heading to Love's Blessings event, which is hosted by my dear friend Mara Geist, and this will be my second appearance there. And I enjoyed it so much. The first time was just fantastic, and I know it'll be fantastic again. I'm very much looking forward to it. I have a lot of great friends in New York. Love the people there. And it's just a wonderful event. And really, what it's about, Kev, is, yes, sharing information with people, but first and foremost, sharing my faith, allowing God to work through me to plant good seeds with these people. And some of these people come that are having, terrible problems in their life, whatever that may be. There's a variety, as you know, a variety of things that could contribute to, bad situations in a person's life. So, people come out and they want to be fed spiritually. So it is my job, God working through me, to not only feed them spiritually, but there are some people coming out for actual deliverances as well, which I do have private sessions with people after the event. And so if you're anybody out there listening in that's from the area or going to be in the area of Brewster, New York, which is about, I'd say probably an hour north of New York City, up in the Hudson Valley area, beautiful area, Kev. And if there's anybody out there, please visit BillBean.net. The information is there, or BillBeanMinistries.com. And the info is there, the starting time, the address, and ticket prices, and all that stuff. So I look forward to seeing everybody there. It's going to be great. And then I'm happy to tell you that on August 11th, I'm going to be headed for the Outer Banks of North Carolina in the Nags Head area. My dear friend Mike Beatty has a wonderful venue down there, Paparazzi OBX, and he wants me to come and appear and have a similar event to Mara's event, to where I come and spiritually feed people and also provide spiritual deliverance. And sometimes that does go into the exorcism areas. There are people that are that troubled that they come in, and whatever the case may be, I just thank God and praise God for working through me to help those people and to help them to move forward. And I also, in the presentation, at the end of the presentation, I offer a group cleansing as well for all who may be there in the audience. I will have the audience join together with me in prayer, and then I take them through a vision quest, Kev, to where we get right to the root of the problem and the heart of the matter, and by the power of God, we're going to purge it out of that person that is having the problem. So I always enjoy making those types of appearances, and very much looking forward to both of those upcoming appearances.
No, that's fantastic, and this is one of the reasons I'm really proud of working alongside you, because we often talk about solutions and being the change and stuff like that, and literally you are having an effect on people's lives, Bill. And I know you don't like to blow your own trumpet, so I'll do it for you. I'll big you up, and you literally are touching people's lives, and you're bringing them comfort. And I've been on this planet 42 years, and you've done more in the few conversations we've had to restore my faith in things than any church or organized kind of church ever could. And that kind of leads me into the story I've got here to bring up to you, Bill. And this might be kind of, I don't know if this is a symptom of the times that we're living in, or whether this is one of the root causes of all the evil that you deal with on a daily basis. But we're now living in a time where we've got the Episcopal Church, and I've probably butchered that name, but they're literally talking about editing the language in the Bible, Bill, and they're wanting to edit the common prayer because they want to make God gender neutral.
Mm-hmm. You know, there's just no words for this. I mean, and I want to thank you for your kind words, brother. I really appreciate that. We praise God for it. And again, I would do anything to help you and your family anytime. And this is all coming from God. It's not my power, it's God's power, and I thank him and praise him for it. And back to what you just said about the Episcopal Church and the Catholic Church, you know, the Pope, he wanted to change a verse out of the Lord's Prayer. So you have all these people that want to make these changes. And this ties right in with what we've talked about many times in the past on your show about these scripture changes. This is all part of it. So you have, however they're doing this, whether it's through CERN and D-Wave quantum computers, I don't know. I don't have the answers there. I have my guesses and opinions on it. Whatever it is, it's supernatural. Its source is supernatural because there's no other way to explain it when you know, you have Bibles that, you know, again, one Bible I have is 157 years old, and then another Bible I have is 20 years old. It travels in my briefcase everywhere I go around this country. And then two other Bibles, you know, and these are King James Bibles, and they're changed. The scriptures are changed, and I just looked the other day at the Catholic Bible. I went online and looked at the Catholic Bible, and there are now changes appearing in the Catholic Bible as well. So,
and you know, Bill, this
started with the King James.
The only way you can describe this, and I think the reason it's not described is because of the times we live in. But if we were back in the times of the witch trials and things, they would outright call this sorcery. And that's exactly
it
is.
Kev.
Yeah, it's supernatural sorcery that's at work here. And I'm with you. It's the CERN, it's the D-Wave. Can I definitively tell people how it all works? No, but I know it's to do with that. And it is magic, Bill.
It really is. And I mean, when you see these, I'll give you a scripture right now, and this is something that I recently discovered, and it's on a website I created called beingbible.changes.com. So for anybody that would want to go and see what we're talking about here with some of these supernatural Bible verses and scriptures being changed, please visit there, beingbible.changes.com. This is Isaiah 7:18. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall hiss for the fly. So this scripture now has been changed, saying that God hisses. I'm sorry, the only hiss that I hear are from serpents and demons and things of that nature. Our God does not hiss, but yet there it is in Isaiah 7:18.
Wow, is this like some way for them to almost be like a tiptoe kind of approach to eventually being a genderless God? Because we're going to have to stop calling it Lord and He because we're offending people, Bill. This is ridiculous.
You are absolutely correct, and that's where we're headed. That's what this is all about. So this is, again, a gigantic mind-op, social engineering into shaping and twisting the perceptions and this politically correct type of ideology to where if you even say, and I say it often, you know, I refer to God in the male form, He, some people don't like that, and they don't want to receive that. And, well, I'm sorry, you know, look, I'm not out to offend anybody. I love everybody. But on the same token, I know who I am. I know who God has created me to be, and I have no compromise. I have respect for people, and people are free to do whatever they want. It's just like homosexuality, Kev. I love all people, but I do not support, condone, or endorse homosexuality. And people are free to do that. If that is their choice, look, God gave us free will. You want to do that? I see it as well, Bill. Fine.
And the way I bring it up to people is the fact that everyone, free will, each to their own, but there's something bigger at work here. They're using all of this. It's an agenda And it's all towards
Yes.
pushing us into this transhumanist world where we'll eventually, in their eyes, merge with machines, and there will be no God that we recognize
You're
today.
100% correct.
Yeah, it'll be replaced by some gender-friendly, all-loving AI system that can speak to every single one of us, all 7 billion of us all at once, omnipresent, just like any other God figure would be, Bill. And this is why
Yeah.
the whole kind of transgender and LGBT, like I say, I'm with you, each to their own, but it's been used by these elites for something far bigger.
You're absolutely right, my brother, and that's where it goes. And it started with that. And again, look, if that's how you want to be and you choose to live your life that way, go right ahead. But do it behind closed doors. I don't run around telling people that I'm an alpha male, heterosexual, and I do this and I do that, and you should do this and you should do that. So if I'm not doing that and other people like me are not doing that, well, then why should there be a cause on the other end for a group such as that, and again, free will, they can do whatever they want. But I don't want that. I don't want to have to see that or have that programming coming at me or that narrative. Look, if you want to live that way, fine. Live that way in peace and in private. There's no reason for people people who do not engage in that lifestyle to be exposed to that lifestyle. So this is all an agenda, and it started with, the really strong promotion of it, and then it went into the transgender, and now it is heading into transhumanism. And I really do believe that a day is coming to where there will be an announcement made saying that there's been the greatest technological discovery in the history of mankind, that if people will take these chips, which I believe is the mark of the beast, if they will accept that, then they will become immortal, and they'll merge with machines. So it'll be a merging of man and machine, whether that's D-Wave computers or something else they come up with, whatever it is. I really believe that's around the corner. And I think that would be the way to get the masses to accept it and to line up. I think they'd line up in the millions to take it, because if somebody's telling you you'll never die, they're going to do it.
Absolutely, and this could even offer, get this, and I don't say this to offend people or be controversial, but they'll even be able to offer a form of resurrection. Because with these virtual worlds that they're able to build now, because all of us, or most people, live their lives openly on the wiretap that is social media, that they can take all of those images, all of those memories, and literally resurrect somebody long or short after they've died, and you'll be able to go and visit dead relatives in basically a virtual heaven, Bill. And that's what they'll be able to
And people are going to eat it up like candy, Kev. They're going to eat it up like candy, and it's sad and unfortunate. And this is why I say, on the flip side of all this madness, please listen to what I'm saying. People out there, please consider, if you don't have any faith, consider faith. Consider having a personal connection and a personal relationship with God and His Son, Yeshua Jesus the Christ. Now, I'm not pushing anything on anybody, because everybody's free to do whatever they want to do. So nor do I want to push anything, because we all have free will. So I'm not going to twist anybody's arm to do anything. But I say this from experience. I say this because my life was a shambles, and I'd suffered so greatly for so long. But yet, when I decided to make God first in my life and accept His Son, Yeshua Jesus the Christ, my entire life changed. My life, I wouldn't trade with anyone on this planet, and I'm very happy and thankful for my life. I'm grateful and thankful to God for everything that He has done, for everything that He is doing, and for everything that He's going to do for me. So I'm just eternally grateful and thankful. And so again, I can't twist anybody's arm to, follow in my footsteps in that way. But I ask people to consider it, especially people who are going through life, who think their life just really sucks and they never can have any type of peace or happiness. Well, I could show you the way. I won't twist your arm to do it, but I can show you the way on how to have that great connection with God. And furthermore, I've said this on Kev's show before, and I'll say it again. Yes, I have this new book out called The Connection. The book is divinely inspired in a way that I just can't fathom, because it was God who put the vision in my head and put the urging in my spirit to write the book in the first place. Secondly, it has reached and touched people from all over the world. It's just amazing. And, you know, God has worked through me to help people in 40 different countries. And this book, which again I believe is certainly divinely inspired by God, is reaching people worldwide in a wonderful and positive way. So I'm grateful and thankful for that. Do I like selling books? Yeah, great, wonderful, that's fine. But I feel so strongly about this book, and I've said this before and I'll say it again now. If you are out there and you can't afford to buy my book, then visit BillBean.net or BillBeanMinistries.com and contact me. You can contact me directly from the site. And if you can't afford it, I will send you a free internet version. It is very important that you read this book and have this type of understanding and knowledge, and make God's power fill you, feed you, bless you, and help you to move forward in a great way.
Well said. And, you know, it kind of makes me laugh sometimes when I hear people saying, you know, all this evil going on in the world, you know, when's God coming back? Why isn't God coming back? And it makes me laugh because, you know, through people like you and others out there, Bill, people are able to get closer to God. And it's the same as anything, you know, we can't rely on others. And we have to be that change. We have to make the moves ourselves. We can't be relying on things just to change. And we have to take that first important step in recognizing there's something wrong, and then doing the hard work and improving whatever it is we need to work on. Wouldn't you agree?
I totally agree, brother. It's very well said. I totally agree. And so, again, it goes back to what I was saying before, that there really is an order to all things in life. And so a person, and again, I've been there, so I totally understand this. A person that is not making God first is out of order. It's out of order, so it's out of balance. And if something is out of order and out of balance, it is not going to function properly and correctly. So therefore, you are going to have problems, and you're going to have some severe problems because things are not in order. Now, once we get things in order and we do make God first, a transformation does take place. Does it make your life perfect? Absolutely not. I'd be a liar if I said that. But what it does is greatly improve your life. And when a situation comes along, because that's life, life does have issues and challenges at every turn. When these situations come along, we have blessed assurance in knowing that God is with us and for us. And if God's with us and for us, who can stand against us? So it gives us that confidence through our faith, what I call warrior mode, which is faith, strength, and courage. If we're walking in that type of faith, strength, and courage, we do have that blessed assurance that God makes the impossible possible, and he makes a way where there isn't a way. Now, what I'm saying here is 100% true, because he's done it for me so many times that I've lost count. And so I'm very, very grateful and thankful to God for everything. And so my life is very good and very blessed, and I am just, for anyone who is seeking such a relationship and such a connection with him.
You know, my mum
It's a very personal thing, Kev.
Yeah, it's very personal, and that's why, Bill, you know, 42 years old almost, and churches and chapels and things, I just can't go near them. And it was only later in life that I realized that it is something personal. It's not a group activity. You don't do this to be in some seen crowd. And I'm sure my mum's wishing that we'd crossed paths many, many years ago, Bill, because, like I said, you've done a lot more to open my eyes to this kind of thing than any church or any guy in a funny costume with a funny shaped hat on in a Catholic chapel or anything like that. You make a lot more sense.
Well, we praise God for it, brother.
And it is personal. It really is personal. And I mean, everyone's got their own path, and some people might like to go about posting passages from the Bible, stuff like that. And just because I don't do things like that doesn't mean that I haven't got my eyes open. It's just we all have our own way to do this. And it is a very personal relationship, Bill. That's what I've come to realize.
Yeah, it's true, and it starts there, and Jesus said this. People miss the message of some of the things that Jesus really said, and then other words have been manipulated with those who inserted these things, trying to say that Jesus said this, and certainly more so now than ever before with these scripture changes that have taken place. But that's another story for another time. But in my life, and what I'm about to say is in my new book, The Connection. I follow these 10 steps, and I call them 10 Steps to Victory, and I have an audio book, as a matter of fact, a free audio book that if you visit my sites, you can watch the video, and it's 10 Steps to Victory, and it's very simple. And again, it won't make your life perfect, but I'll guarantee it'll greatly improve it. And so in these 10 steps, step 1 is making God first. The second step is following the path and the teachings of Yeshua, Jesus the Christ. The name Jesus is only 400 years old, but that's another show, another story. His Hebrew name is Yeshua, which means Yahweh saves. Yahweh saves through him. The name of God is Yahweh, listed 6,823 times in the Bible, replaced with the title of Lord. So wherever you see Lord in caps, it should say Yahweh. So we'll elaborate that on that maybe in another show. But and step 3 is building your faith. Step 4 is forgiving. It's very important to forgive, and this was another really central message from Jesus, that it's forgiveness is every bit as much for us as it is for the person that we're forgiving. And so we must forgive. When we carry around hatred and grudges, it's a spiritual poisoning. So that's what Jesus was trying to say there. And step 5 is finding your purpose in life. It's the greatest thing in life to know what your purpose is. And once I realized what my purpose was in life and is, it was very liberating for me. So I'm grateful again to God for calling me on that path and revealing my purpose in life. And 6 is using the power of positive thinking. I recall in my younger days being in such a negative state of mind that I would wake up and just blurt out that, I thought the day was going to suck or be horrible or whatever, and it was, because I just spoke that into existence. So maybe we can elaborate on that again in another show, Kev, next month. But and then step 7 is setting goals. It's very important to set goals in life, whatever it may be. If we truly believe in whatever that goal is, and we put the work in, and it requires hard work, we can achieve it. And step 8 is giving to others. It's I'd much rather give to somebody than to receive. And I'm, again, grateful that I have that mindset. Thank God. And step 9 is being grateful for everything. It is very important to be grateful and thankful to God for all the blessings. And always try to focus on the blessings in your life and let them override any shortcomings or any torments or pains that may be taking place. And then step 10 is walking in that faith, strength, and courage, which that's what I call warrior mode. And when we're in that type of warrior mode, we're strong in mind, body, and spirit. And we have that philosophy that we refuse to lose, because, again, if God is with us and for us, who can be against us? So, and if there's anybody out there that's in this kind of need, I'm very busy, but I'm never too busy to help somebody. So if you're out there and you're suffering from demonic problems, whether it might be oppression or something that you feel you're attached, or something's attached to you, or it might be curses, whatever it may be. I pray that never runs in or turns into a full-blown possession, but whatever the case may be, don't hesitate to contact me at BillBean.net or BillBeanMinistries.com, and my assistant Melinda will get back to you, and we'll do everything that we can to get you help. So there it is.
He will. I can absolutely vouch for that, ladies and gentlemen. I'm proof of that. My mum, my brother Kenny. So I don't just big it up. We're walking the walk and talking the talk here. I know Bill will absolutely help you out. And, Bill, we're almost out of time, but please tell me you haven't been involved in any more scary flights since we last spoke, because I've been keeping up on what's going on. And how's it been for you? Any more kind of drama in the air?
Well, I have to say hi to your mom, Pearl, and your brother, Kenny, and God bless them. And, no, I have to say, Kev, thank God the most recent flights have been good and smooth, and may that continue.
awesome, and we're out of time. Brilliant, Bill Bean. Check him out on billbean.com. Wherever you are, make it TFR, and God bless everyone. Good night.